GM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road Show, the daily crypto show where we're so bullish we're putting down payments on imaginary yachts. I'm your host, Jay Hamilton. It's Monday, July the 14th, and today we are joined by Karia Samaroo, the co-founder of WonderFi, which was recently acquired by Robinhood for $180 million. Also the CEO and founder of xTao, that's xTao, the first public company that's focused exclusively on Bitttensor. Today, we're going to talk about so much. I'm so stoked for this episode. We're going to talk about Crypto Week in the US. What is Crypto Week? What's going on? Why is it such a big deal? Bitcoin absolutely ripping all-time highs. We're going to talk about why Karya thinks that the Bitcoin bull run is just getting started and where he thinks it's going from here. Altcoin season. Obviously, we got to talk about alts. We're going to pay special attention to Pump, which had their token launch over the weekend. What is going on with Pump and why we see this as an exciting trend around the return of ICOs. And of course, we're going to talk about Bitttensor and TAO and Karya's outlook for that. Today's episode is brought to you by Ledn. Get cash without selling your Bitcoin. It's also brought to you by Definitive, the leading multi-chain trading terminal trusted by DAOs, funds, and pro traders alike. Without further ado, Karya, welcome to the Milk Road Show.
Thanks, Jay. Great to be here.
Pleasure to have you, my man. What an exciting week. Wow. How you feeling?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's crazy to see, not only Bitcoin all-time highs, Crypto Week, obviously really excited about everything that's happening within Bitttensor, but I mean, just across the board, it's crazy. And like you mentioned, Pump.fun, there's so much happening in the space.
There's so much to talk about. I won't deny, like, as a daily podcaster, there's definitely weeks and months where like there's not as much to talk about, right? Shout out to everybody who continues to show up. Deep bow for you guys. I love you guys. But this is one of those weeks where, and it's been like this for, it's amazing. I had an interview earlier today with a quant trader, somebody who runs a quant trading firm. And he was talking about how, as a quant trader, like you don't make decisions based upon vibes or narratives or like, the instinct. You just, you have a system and it does trades based upon your system. And he was talking about how he can even feel the energy right now and the shift that's happening. Here's my question to start off is the tough thing is when these pumps happen, it's very easy to feel like, here we go, right? Like we're going to Valhalla. We've all been waiting. Bitcoin's going to 200 plus K. What do you make of the market right now? And maybe start by talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah. So Bitcoin, it's funny because you asked that feeling of almost euphoria that happens, and you and I have both been in the crypto space for a long time, so we've seen cycles. I'll talk about Bitcoin first, but that feeling I think is an interesting one too, because having been through multiple cycles now, that is the point where there's a lot. I really focus a lot more on just really doing analysis and trying to take a step back, remove the bias, get out of the vacuum that exists, because I think it's that classic saying. It's like, when you feel like you're a genius because you're making money on everything, it's like, that's the time to sell. I'm not saying that's not where I think we are right now, but I think, as the market heats up and you're seeing hundreds of millions of dollars raised in 10 minutes, it's interesting to at least like have that lens. But I think with Bitcoin, it's really exciting to see. I think Bitcoin's going to go a lot higher from here. I feel like we're just getting started. The US policy changes and promises that are coming with some of the stuff that's happening in Crypto Week. Being a securities lawyer by trade, I'm always thinking about regulatory clarity and then dealing with a lot of investors that really do care a lot about having that clarity. Not just investors, but also operators. And now we're starting to just see so much more clarity from that perspective. So I think that's really encouraging. And then I think with Bitcoin, it's just there's just not enough supply, and the demand keeps growing. The amount of capital that's being raised by Bitcoin treasury companies and their performance relative to MicroStrategy being the best performing stock, I think, in the last 5 years, is obviously the best indicator there. But just more and more demand and less supply. And I think as there's more regulatory clarity, there's just going to be more demand because people that have been on the fringes are starting to see, okay, this is really happening now, and it continues to grow every wave.
Where do you think we are in the do you look at market cycles and think about like where we are in the cycle? I know you've been through a few cycles before, so you've
Mhm,
seen the bull market and the bear market, and you've seen
mhm,
the ups and the downs. Where do you think we are right now if
mhm.
you were to step back and look at this cycle?
Yeah, not an expert from a markets perspective by any means, but definitely do look at market cycles. And I think what's different about what's different about this cycle, I think, is there is a lot of, I feel like every cycle we talk about institutional adoption, and that's been the narrative, I think, since 2016 when I first got into crypto. And that has been true to a certain extent. Every cycle, there are more institutions playing in different ways, whether it's with Bitcoin or just with digital assets in general. I think this cycle, it really is actual policies and legislation that's coming in that is changing things significantly for Bitcoin, for digital assets, for stable coins, for the whole industry. I think with the Clarity Act also giving this delineation between securities and commodities, something that we've been talking about for a decade, and now it may come to reality. So I think it's something that is just, we just keep it just keeps opening up the gates for more capital to come in and more talent to come in to build in the space. So I think all that said, I feel like we're still relatively early on, kind of in the bull market. I think there's a lot more room to go because it's not, there is that euphoria feeling, but there's a lot of fundamentals to back up why that's happening, and where we can go from here.
Okay, let's talk about crypto week for a second, because I think it is fits into this narrative you're saying around the shift that is happening within crypto in this move to actually getting real legislation and real clarity
Mhm,
and the impact of that. You you've worked behind the scenes
mhm,
for you built WonderFi, one of the largest crypto exchanges in Canada, which was then acquired by, was it a month or 2 months ago, acquired by Robinhood for $180 million. What's the impact of something like crypto week? Because I think that, like, for us retail traders,
mhm.
and investors, like, we're not behind the scenes in crypto
Right.
week, you know what I mean? Like, so how does how do you view something like crypto week? How does this
Yeah.
what is going to be felt? What's going to happen during this week?
So I think about it from a builder founder perspective. And when there's a lack of clarity around how things are regulated, am I going to go to jail if I do this? Uh, and then for investors,
Legitimate question, though. Legitimate
which are
question, right?
legitimate questions. Like when I
Yeah.
got into the industry, it was so ICOs were booming, and I was a securities lawyer. So my whole career was around helping public companies raise money, and it's like can be like a 3 month, 4 month process. You've got a team of lawyers, team of bankers, and all this effort goes in, and then I'm looking and seeing there's companies that are raising $100 million in 10 minutes, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? And that has obviously evolved a lot, and there's been so much that has happened since that first or second ICO wave, depending on how you look at it. But as a founder, really, I think there's a lot of people that have a lot of conviction around digital assets and what the potential is, but there are real risks, and depending on what country you're in, there, like Canada, for instance, we don't need to spend our time speaking about that, but I think it's really lagging from a regulatory standpoint. And so the US taking the lead and saying, okay, we're going to solve all these key issues that have been here for the last decade, and we're going to try and do it in a week, I think is really impressive. So I think that allows founders to really come to market with things they've been working on in a more open way. And then it allows legacy companies, TradFi, et cetera, to start making those investments or acquisitions that they've been looking at. And then it allows investors to say, okay, I can more properly evaluate how, how risky this this investment is. Because prior to this, the SEC or whatever regulator shuts the door, and that investment goes to zero. So really, I think is that flow that opens up amongst builders, TradFi, and kind of investors, institutions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. To me, it's Crypto Week feels like political marketing to me, and which is very important, right? Because okay, so what is Crypto Week? It's really it's Trump delivering on his promises. It's the U.S. House of Representatives actually sitting down and saying we're going to vote on, was it 3 crypto bills that they're going to vote on this week? So real political movement, but then like packaging it and marketing in a way that says to all of that gives the media a lot to talk about, that says this is a priority, that says, and that feels to me kind of like, it feels like the momentum that we need on the political side, because I think that there's you can't, what really stood out to me was, do you remember when Paul Atkins, new SEC chair, or was it like a month ago or something like that, he tweeted, I don't know if he tweeted or if it was like the SEC's X account, but basically said, hey, America's now open for DeFi. We're now open, and he used DeFi specifically. We're open for crypto business. And that was a big moment to me, that really, and again, maybe this is more of a signal to founders and builders than it is to investors, but we need founders and we need builders in order to build great tools and great products that will then make our assets increase and be great for investors. And so I really frame it in that sort of view, is that we need that type of marketing at the political level to get the energy and enthusiasm, and also the shift in honestly perspective from like crypto's a scam and all the like negative media that we've had for so many years. I don't know if
I feel like that's such a great point. The marketing and being able to package that up and say this is the message is it's huge. And this is the last time we'll bring up Canada unless we need to talk about it again. But because I have strong views about how Canada has regulated crypto, but it's the opposite. It's not saying we're open for business for crypto. It's saying don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And if you want to talk to us, it's going to take a year to get through anything. Whereas you're right, like this is just very clear signaling, and it's in a really simple way, so that media can pick it up and people can just see it and understand it. I think it's a great point.
Selling your Bitcoin should be a last resort when you need cash. That's why there's Ledn, the trusted platform for Bitcoin-backed loans. You can unlock cash in as little as 18 hours with no monthly interest payments and no prepayment penalties. They've issued over $9 billion in loans and never lost a single Satoshi of client funds, even during the chaos of 2022. If you're a long-term hodler, this is the move. Get liquidity without selling at milkroad.com/Ledn, spelled Ledn. In traditional finance, whales use the Bloomberg terminal. In crypto, they use Definitive, the trading terminal built by Coinbase alumni, which lets you trade across every major chain out there. Definitive's combination of low fees and advanced order types like limit, stop loss, and take profit make it one of the best on-chain trading experiences there is. The kicker, Milk Road listeners trade free on their first 25,000 in volume. Visit milkroad.com/definitive and start trading like a pro today. Okay, so let's shift to Pump, because it's an interesting to go from the political landscape to a massive ICO that just happened over the weekend. And this feels like a moment, and we can talk, let's talk about two things. I would love to get your thoughts on Pump particularly, and then I would love to get your thoughts on like what this what this signals for you, or
Mhm.
how you view this. Is this a new trend and what this means for the market? So first, what's your thoughts on Pump.fun and what they've done here?
So at first cut, just seeing the amount of money that they raised in the time frame, I think it was 600 million in or 500 million in 12 minutes.
12 minutes, yeah.
And definitely it's that deja vu moment of ICOs in 2016 or 2017. And that's really what it brought up for me was, wow, this is happening all over again. And there were so many times where people would say, and everybody thought, okay, ICOs are dead. And it just sort of keeps coming back in different, different iterations. So I think that was my first reaction. I think there's obviously a lot behind the Pump.fun business in terms of questionable practices and things like that, which I don't necessarily have a specific view on, but I think market wise, I think it just shows the market is heating up and people are wanting to take risk on assets. And I think the most recent thing prior to this was the Trump and Melania tokens and just how much buying there was when those got launched and how much kind of euphoria and then a massive dump came. But I think it just shows that people do want to make those bets and bet on these risk assets. So potentially most clearly I think it's a signal of where we are in the cycle, which I'm not saying we're at the top or nearing the top, but I think it's people are seeing, okay, Bitcoin is ripping and the top altcoins are doing extremely well, and so let's take some 10% of my assets and throw it into look for a grand slam sort of thing.
Yeah, it feels like risk on season has either it's depending on the way you look at it. It's either it's begun. I think it has. We're either in the pre-inning or it's begun,
Yes.
and it difficult to say. The thing that I struggle with is like I feel pretty good about Bitcoin from here.
Yeah.
Bitcoin feels like it's up only, maybe a little bit of volatility as always, but it feels up only. Altcoins, I'm still not in the boat that
Hmm.
altcoins are that it's full on altcoin season yet.
Right.
I think Bitcoin continues to dominate for at least the next little while. Now, that being said, the market is very different than it was
Yeah.
last cycle, right? So there is opportunities for sure. I just think that like, hey, everything goes to Valhalla and everything's going to the moon type of end of the bull run. I don't think we're in that phase.
I agree. I think that's a great way to put it. And it feels like we're probably thinking similar timelines in terms of when alt season could happen. But again, it's going to look different. I don't think it's everything. I don't think it's rising tide, brings everything up. I think the market is, people are paying more close attention to what the assets are. There's obviously this sort of meme coin category, but people are doing such deep analysis and really understanding the whole memetics and how much reach these different assets have, and now that's the metric that they're looking at, as opposed to just I like the name of this and this is where I'm going to put my money into it. So I think that's what I'm seeing on that side of things. And then with some of the more kind of productive crypto assets, I do think the bar is being raised, and part of it is because you're getting more and more high quality founders and teams that are building, and it's just you're continuing to attract more talent from from top tech companies into these projects. So I think that's really encouraging to see. But I feel like it's going to be Bitcoin for at least several more months here leading the charge.
What what do you think is when do we get altcoin season? What's the setup, do you think?
Yeah, again, not I'm don't claim to be a market expert, but I feel like the kind of end of 2025 is sort of what I have in mind, and I follow a lot of different analysis and look at my own factors, but I think that's the time frame that I'm seeing. What are you thinking from your side?
Yeah, I think I can't I think end of 2025, early 2026. Um I think right now for the foreseeable future, the big narrative is these public company treasury strategy, which obviously I want to chat about with you
Mhm.
being involved and founding xTao. But let's get there. But I think that's where all the liquidity goes in the short term.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I think those tokens are the ones that will do best. Now, what's
Mm.
very interesting is we've gone from Bitcoin only basically being the treasury strategy
Yeah.
for years to all of a sudden there being a lot of Bitcoin
Yeah.
treasury companies around the world, and it makes sense. There will be one in every country. There'll be many in every country, to be honest. To now there being other tokens that have treasury strategy companies as
Mhm.
well. Ethereum's obviously the one that's getting the most attention right now, but I mean, there's go down the list. There's Hype has launched two in
Mhm.
the past week. So there's so many here. Um, I want to come back to that though. I don't want to quite go
Sure.
there yet. Let's just finish on Pump.fun. Uh, other step back from Pump.fun. What do you think that like this? What is this ICO sort of? What does it mean for crypto? What is it? What trend does it show you?
Mhm. I think that this will lead to more ICOs that are happening, more on-chain token launches or capital raises. And I do think, even though they didn't sell into the US, UK, or Canada, though the global regulatory and really the global regulatory landscape is, I think, always considered in these types of raises. And so I think it's just more on-chain permissionless capital that is going to flow. Um, and I feel like Pump.fun is kind of leading the charge in that. So I think you're going to see more legitimate projects that are looking to raise capital through these types of token launches, and maybe there's new methods that we're going to see. Like, I think that was something that we've seen in the last two cycles is, it was ICOs, and then it was IEOs and IDOs and DAOs, and just on and on. There were so many different methods that were developed, and a lot of it was around changing legislation and de-risking and things like that. But I think we might see some new ways to raise capital that we don't even know what they potentially look like yet.
Mm-hmm. Would you buy Pump?
I'm not very speculative. I would say my two crypto holdings are Bitcoin and TAO,
Okay.
and that hasn't always been the case. Like, I have been a lot more speculative through different cycles, but this yeah, kind of over the last 2 years, I've held Bitcoin since 2016, and I'm sure we'll get into TAO later, but really discovering TAO kind of gave me this very similar philosophical roots as Bitcoin, just kind of that essence of tackling this massive problem, and so that's become my largest holding, and so not a lot of room for Pump.fun, although I do love to see. That's not, I'm not throwing shade on them. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really amazing to see.
Let's talk about Tao, because it's so interesting that your portfolio is just Bitcoin and Tao. I don't think there's I can't think of another guest that would have that
Yeah.
portfolio allocation. I We don't need to talk about the Bitcoin part. Get that,
Yeah.
fully get that. Why Tao?
So after WonderFi and Robinhood, I was really thinking about what's next, and hard to ignore AI and growth potential there. So just spent more and more time, understanding what was happening in the AI space. And I think I really got excited about it, but also very scared, just terrified of the centralization risk. And just so many of those moments where I'm thinking, okay, this is the most powerful tool that humanity may ever create, and we're just funneling all of our data and like handing it all over to two or three companies, that so that they can their tools build up their tools, and they get to choose who accesses this and how it's trained and how it's built. And so as I was investigating that problem, I got introduced to Bittensor, and it really was the first thing that got me as excited as when I first found Bitcoin. And I mentioned this, I think, similar philosophical roots. So there was a lot of similarities there. Bitcoin really trying to create fair money, I think, is the way that I look at it, and then Bittensor trying to create fair AI, and it's definitely in its very early stages, but it's super nascent. But I do think that it'll become a top three crypto asset in the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And yeah, happy to kind of dive into why that is and what the specifics are. But that's kind of what drew me into it.
Yeah, just trying to look at where's Tao right now. If we say it's going to be a top three, right now it is sitting at, is it top 50 right now? Or is it
Yeah,
top 100?
no, it should be top 50. I think it's around sitting around.
38. So it's sitting at a 3.8 billion market cap, 8.5 billion FTV. So it's still got quite a bit locked up. Uh, Up. I mean, it's done decently well in the past year. Up 55% in the past year.
Mhm.
You say top three, that would obviously be a massive jump. That would mean it goes from, it's at a 3.8 billion market cap right now. If it got into top three based on today's numbers, it would be 200 billion market cap. That would be almost a 100x from where it is right now.
Right.
What gives you that conviction?
So again, going back to the similarities to Bitcoin. So I think philosophically it has these similarities, but then from a tokenomics standpoint, I guess I look at it as Bitcoin has created the world's largest supercomputer, and the purpose of that computer really is to create Bitcoin and to secure the network, as we all know. And Bittensor has taken the same tokenomics, so 21 million max supply and a similar halving schedule, and it's trying to create an even larger supercomputer, but using that to create AI. And so I think, again, it's in the very early stages, but the talent that this ecosystem is attracting and the amount of compute and power that's already being consumed on the network and what's being the AI outputs that are being created is just continues to blow my mind. And so I think the phrase really is proof of intelligence, and so the miners are incentivized to bring their AI models and train their AI models and compete with each other.
Yeah,
And
explain.
yeah,
Explain how Tau works. Explain how it
yeah.
works for a second.
So
Or
basically, just I know you have a sophisticated audience, but I guess the way that I've been explaining it is miners on Bittensor really they're competing to create better AI. And so as a miner, it's not just providing compute like you do on Bitcoin or other networks. You may have to provide compute, but you also have to bring your chops. You have to bring your intelligence. You have to bring your technical skills, and you are competing to create the best model. And you get ranked based on your performance, and you get rewarded in Tau based on your performance. So it creates this decentralized computer network that you can point at different AI problems, and all of a sudden you get hundreds of miners that are some of the top AI machine learning engineers that are competing and getting paid in real time for their performance. So it's really exciting from that standpoint. And I think we're definitely past a proof of concept stage. There's over 100 what are called subnets on Bittensor. Each subnet picks a problem to focus on. So there's all different types of inference. There's decentralized compute subnets. There's things like deepfake detection, like really kind of singular focused AI problems. But each of those is growing and creating these outputs that can then be accessed through, using Tau. So that's sort of I guess the high level overview. So similarities from a structural perspective relative to Bitcoin, but then just kind of taking that and applying it into creating this decentralized AI network.
what would need to happen in order for Tau to get to that that top three or to get that next leg up?
So I think the thing that excites me the most about TAO and about Bittensor is that, again, if you create a subnet, you need to create something that is that people are going to want and people are going to use, because if you don't, then people won't allocate their TAO to it and it'll die. And so it's this real like open free market system where you need to find what AI products people want to use, and then if you want to contribute to the network, you need to be extremely talented and work to improve whatever that product is. And so what needs to happen for Bittensor to get to that top three is there needs to be more useful applications that are being built, and the network, like as the network continues to grow, those products will become more accessible. So I guess like a couple of examples, there's a subnet called Targon, which is on Bittensor. And so effectively, everyone's worried about, we talked about this earlier, everybody's worried about OpenAI stealing your data, or you handing your data over to them. And so Targon offers inference that's done in a confidential private computing environment, and then you can choose which LLM you interact with. So it's a very sort of simple concept, but that's one of the most promising subnets that's being built on Bittensor. And so I think as we see more really useful products like that are being built, and more adoption of the products that are coming out of the network, that's when we're going to start to see this this grow sort of in many multiples.
Did Targon or any of the other subnets, do they have meaningful users when you look at the numbers?
Yeah, so we're starting to get there. So I think there's two metrics that I look at. One is, are the subnets creating products that compete with centralized AI products, their centralized AI counterparts? Are they meeting that performance or exceeding it? And we're seeing some of the subnets start to hit those markers and exceed them. So I think from a performance standpoint, we're seeing that the thesis is working. There's still room to grow, obviously. And then I think the second bracket really is, okay, you have high performing subnets. Are people using them? And that's what you're talking about, because you can build the best product if nobody uses it, doesn't matter. So, a good example, I guess Targon, since we're talking about it, or maybe a better one is actually Shoots. So Shoots is, Open Router is a non-Bittensor kind of open source product that provides inference through open source models. And I think it's really the most widely used open source LLM sort of product. And I believe it's the majority of inference that's happening through Open Router is actually being powered by Bittensor, by a subnet on Bittensor that's called Shoots. So Shoots.ai is the front end for that. And so there's a massive amount of tokens that are being processed every month through this particular product. And then there's other consumer facing products like Bitmind, which is a deepfake detection product, which has consumer use. And there's another one called Dippy, which is like a character.ai, a decentralized version of that, which has a ton of monthly users. I think it's one of the top apps on the App Store in that category. So you're starting to see that, definitely not across the board, but it's like, you're starting to see a few of these subnets really start to take off in terms of user adoption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, it like from my perspective, I'm not an investor in TAO. We've talked about it a few times on the show, and my very simple perspective is that AI is a massive narrative with it, whether in crypto or even beyond crypto. It's a bigger narrative than crypto even. But within crypto, it's shown that it is a big narrative. We did have AI agent season, at the end of
Right.
last year, and virtuals and AI 16Z and like all of these did so well, and have had moments where they've had comebacks, and even in the last 3 months. And it just feels like if you want to make a bet on AI within crypto, Bittensor feels like the bet to make. Like that's the simplest way to put it in my mind. And so it's, not financial advice, but if you want to take a small percentage of your portfolio and you're like, hey, yeah, I want some upside to AI within crypto, put some of it in Bitttensor feels like a good bet at this point. Okay, I want to shift to Robinhood because you founded WonderFi. Give us the background. Okay, so tell for our audience who isn't Canadian, doesn't necessarily know WonderFi, give us the quick TLDR on what is WonderFi, and then how did the Robinhood deal come about?
Yeah. Okay. So very quick, I founded WonderFi in 2021, and the reason that I started it was Canada was really struggling on regulating crypto, and you had all of these different crypto exchanges that were competing for the same customers, trying to be compliant, and it was really difficult. And so created WonderFi, built a brand and an exchange, and then found all the best operators and tech uh, within Canada, consolidated them, and then we became the largest regulated exchange in Canada within 2 to 3 years. When I was CEO, we were really actively looking at expansion into the US as a next step. What we wanted to build was something that could compete on a global scale because there was nothing in Canada doing that. And as we were looking at that US expansion, there was also US and international companies that see Canada as a growth market, but it's really expensive, complicated to enter. And so we had discussions with, different, there was a lot of different opportunities. But Robinhood is, I couldn't have picked a better partner because I think it's amazing to have a fintech like a TradFi company, partner with WonderFi, and seeing what Robinhood's doing outside of the WonderFi acquisition, seeing what they're doing with digital assets and crypto more broadly it's super exciting. So that's kind of the quick background on WonderFi.
Yeah, it feels like okay. Let's talk about Robinhood now
Yeah.
because it feels like uh, what what Robinhood is doing is a massive signal for crypto adoption in my mind, like an absolutely massive. You have one of the biggest fintechs in the world that is openly prioritizing crypto, openly saying that they believe that crypto and blockchain is the future of finance, and then
Mhm.
very actively like pulling out their wallet and spending a ton of money on
Yeah.
acquisitions in order to grow as quickly as possible, and then having a crypto event like 3 weeks ago in France, and open and making a big announcement that they're going to launch their own L2, which was also a big signal to Ethereum in my mind. When you look at what's your thoughts on Robinhood's crypto strategy?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's massive signal, and not only are they, one of the largest players, but also their product is the best from a stock purchasing standpoint. I think that's that's what it comes down to. Everybody in the US uses Robinhood, and they're, trying to bring that to Canada, to Europe, all these different places, and then really merging, to your point, launching a layer two. They've launched tokenized equities, I think just in Europe right now, but they're really trying to bridge everything together. And I was reading on the tokenized equities part, the users in Europe will be able to receive dividend payments directly into their app, which is
Oh wow, that's
which is
huge.
so it's really, it's not just this kind of blind, like, okay, let's take over the world, get into every country. I feel like it's a very thoughtful plan, and then partnering with Arbitrum to launch the tokenized stocks, and then it sounds like they're going to be working with Arbitrum to launch their own layer two. So they clearly know where the puck is going. They have the product and the user base and the cash to grow this in whatever way they want to, which is really exciting. And then I feel like it's also, I feel like I'm tooting their horn too much, but the other part is like they're not they're doing it in like smart, thoughtful, phased approaches too, which I think is really smart, because from an execution standpoint, I think if they had gone right out of the gate to launch their own layer two, to launch the tokenized stocks, maybe there's more potential execution risk there. But I think they have this staged approach which they've developed, which is very thoughtful and will work. So yeah, really, really exciting to see. And then the other part is crypto staking. which I think they've launched with US customers, starting with ETH and Sol. And so just another kind of exciting product to see.
How big could Robinhood get, do you think?
A lot bigger.
It feels like they could be the biggest finance company in the world someday. Like it feels like they are on a, and I get the thing I always have to say when we talk about Robinhood is like they've got a stain on their reputation as a
Right.
result of what happened with GameStop.
Yeah.
And there's certainly still a lot of their customers who got really badly burnt as a result of that.
Yeah.
But I think you gotta step back and look beyond that.
Mhm.
Like I'm not going to make comments on that situation and what was right and what was wrong, but when you see the path that they're on, the way they have dominated the US, and they're really only in the US. They're
Mhm.
not in other countries yet, but then they're using crypto to, I think what I can see is they're going to get into other countries pretty quickly because of crypto, right? If they had gone the more TradFi route, it would take them a lot longer to get into these other countries or cost a lot more money, probably. It'd be time and money. But it feels like the crypto is going, as a result of blockchain, they're going to be able to move very quickly in their growth and offer these new products. I don't know. I feel we're very at Milk Road. We've been bullish on Robinhood for a while and recommended our pro members purchase Hood back in April, which ended up being a great buy. So I'm tooting my own horn a little bit here on my own beliefs, but what do you think?
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think exactly what you said. And then they have those opportunities and they're moving on them very quickly. So I think that's which I think it's I don't know the company that well personally, like the founders, etc. But it seems as though that's part of their DNA, or really part of the of the core principles of the company. And so I think it's really seems to it really seems to all be coming together. So I'm very bullish as well on them.
Amazing. All right. We're going to have to cut it here. I feel like we might need to do a part 2 to talk more about the treasury company strategy and xTao and what you're doing there, because we could do a whole episode on that. We didn't have a ton of time to dive into that, but Karya, been an absolute pleasure to get you on the show today.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Jay.
Thanks so much, as always, for listening in, everybody. Truly appreciate your time. Got to give you all a deep bow of respect because we recently hit 20,000 subs on YouTube, and that's all because of you tuning in every day. I can't thank you guys enough. I have to remind you, as always, that none of today's episode is financial advice. I'm not your investment advisor. Karya is not your investment advisor. You should do your own research, and if you need help, you should speak to a financial representative. You could also think about checking out Milk Road Pro. And finally, I've got to give a shout out to our partners over at Nexo. Have just partnered with the DP World Tour, one of the leading golf tournaments in the world, 45 tournaments across 4 continents, and they're going to have the Nexo Championship debuting this August in Scotland. So keep an eye out for that, because this is one of those things that feels very marketing talk, but I get super excited because when you think about sports and the crossover with the attention that it has and how many leading global brands are sponsoring massive sports tournaments, it's pretty exciting to see crypto brands sponsoring large sports tournaments as well. So hat tip to Nexo. Way to go, guys. Thanks as always for doing what you guys do in the space. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Have a wicked awesome day. We'll see you back again tomorrow. As always, if you liked today's episode, please hit subscribe and make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, we're going to also leave a link for Milk Road Pro. You get access to our portfolio where you can see exactly exactly what we are buying. This is your number one resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this show is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Investing in crypto or any asset is risky, and you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. Thanks so much for listening in, my friends. Have a wicked awesome day.